So now Gemini is released, and we're waiting for the next version of GPT-4, which will have, what is that, Q plus, Q star, something. Why is all this so important? We are in the process of inching closer and closer and closer to something called AGI. What is AGI? It is artificial general intelligence. So we've achieved intelligence in many sub areas, like we have a computer that can play chess better than human being, a computer that can play Go better than human beings, a computer that can do sorting, can do many kind of things faster than human beings. Even some degree of intelligence in certain areas, it has shown better than human beings. Now, one assumption is that all it takes is a quantitative step by increasing the number of tokens, a number of amount of processing power, etc., etc. It's a quantitative step going from the current method of using logic to being truly conscious. Of course, we have different words for it called sentience and all of that. And we have a lot of discussion about why it is not yet conscious. I mean, can it do painting? Actually, it can. Can it do music? What is it that a machine can do what is it that a human can do that a machine can't do? And that is the gap that needs to be bridged. And with Gemini, we are one more step closer to bridging the gap, answering the question of what is it that a human can do that a machine can't do, perhaps even can't do better. This is the holy grail, the thing that we're all working towards in bated breath. Because if a machine can do something that a human being can, and perhaps do it even better, then we assume that the machine is conscious and alive. I'm not too sure. So, I am a cognitive psychologist. I've learned about the brain, about the mind, and about something about computers. Of course, I don't know too much about it, but I do. And the question to me was always a question about consciousness. Question: what is human consciousness? And in all this discussion, and there's a whole other set of discussions about quantum mechanics and how that proves that the universe is conscious, that a particle knows when it's being observed and when it's not being observed. So that's another set of things. So, question is, who is studying human consciousness? There's a lot of conversation about machine intelligence, about particles, and all of that. But I think we're not talking enough about human consciousness. Interestingly, I come from a country, which is India, which has focused much more on the study of human consciousness than on the study of computers and quantum mechanics. That's how it is. So, if you wanted to ask the question of does this match human consciousness, don't you think it's important that you have some understanding of what human consciousness is? So, what does India have to say about human consciousness? The one thing that it says that the awareness that we have of who I am, of who you are, and of what is happening, this is not a single state. I mean, when you're asleep, what happens to consciousness? Are you dead? Is the consciousness over? Or is it lying dormant somewhere? What about NREM sleep? What about deep sleep when you're not even aware of what's happening? You wake up and time is gone, you don't know anything. So, how do you still determine you are you? That is the core of the consciousness, right? It is in continuity. So, if I have continuity, then it must be me. So, here comes one more question of can I transfer all my memories to a machine and would that be conscious like me? The point is that there is a discontinuity. I am in my body, in my physical presence, and I wake up, I look at the mirror and I see myself. What if tomorrow I wake up and I transform into being a cockroach? Would I still be me? So the question of what is me, we're not asking. That's number one. Number two, about consciousness and awareness. we have different states of consciousness. It's not the same. For example, I don't know, you could fast for a couple of days and then suddenly your mind will work very differently from what it's working now. So when you're asking whether a machine is conscious, which consciousness is the question? So I think we are completely wrong in this whole question approach. We assume that we know what is consciousness simply because we believe that we are conscious, and I think that's an assumption that we need to look at. So somewhere along the line, we have to bring in the question of, are human beings conscious? I mean, it's one thing to say machines are conscious or not. Are human beings conscious? So, one of the things that I often talk about is, can you fall in love with a machine? And the answer, of course, is no. However intelligent it might seem, the machine is artificial, therefore, you can't fall in love with a machine. You can only love another human being. When somebody tells you that, you have to ask the person, do you think you can love your dog, your pet dog? Yes. Now, wait a minute, wait a minute. We don't know whether a dog experiences the world the way we do. We only know the external things, right? And yet we are able to love a dog. If we are able to love a dog, what about loving your own car? Do you love it? Do you take care of it? Do you have an emotional attachment to it? I remember once Richard Bach, the author of the book Jonathan Livingston Seagull, in one of his essays, he says that if you love an airplane, and he's talking about a single pilot airplane, if you love an airplane, the airplane will love you back. How's that? So there's a whole set of questions that we are completely avoiding by focusing only on the machine and asking, is ChatGPT conscious? Is GPT-4 conscious? Is GPT-5 going to be sentient? How close are we with the new artificial intelligence that's released by Alphabet, which is that conscious? So we keep asking this question, but we don't know what we're comparing it with. So think about it. Are we conscious? Or are we conscious all the time? Or is it the same consciousness that we have now and later, or when we're asleep? What happens to consciousness? At what point are we, at what point do we change our notion of who we are? When you're drunk, what happens, for example? Or when you're drugged, what happens, for example? One way that I think of all this is I look at consciousness and memories as subsystems, which means that there's more than one consciousness that I have. And of course, this is not just me. There are many texts in Indian traditions which look at consciousness at different layers, different kinds of beings, all of that. And of course, this is where Jung uses the word persona. He says that we have a different persona, a different kind of person talking to different people, and but we can never take away the mask and see what we are really on the inside. That's a long story. I don't want to get into it. The purpose of this video is to ask the single question: do we know what human consciousness is? And without that, why are we even thinking whether machines are conscious or not? That question cannot come from Western science. Well, it could come from Western science at some point, but here in India, there are hundreds of years of inquiry into what is consciousness. So I think without considering that, we're only considering half of the equation, not looking at the other half. It's not balancing. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you. I hope I've ruined your sleep as these thoughts have ruined mine. It's quite late and I'm trying to go to bed, but I hope that I've ruined your sleep as well. Thank you. All the best.